So we have Amit Doshi on the show.
Hello.
So Amit is the founder of IVM Podcast.
That is correct.
And Amit, what was before this?
I came back from college in the US. I came back and I was an assistant director for a couple of years in Bollywood films.
Okay.
After which I started an e-commerce site very, very early in India's internet history.
Which year was that?
Way too early, 1999.
Wow.
It should have been significantly later.
Okay.
But yeah, started an e-commerce site, did a bunch of stuff in the IT-enabled spaces, services kind of thing. Ran some stuff in the ad tech space, ran some stuff in the mobile gaming space, done some stuff in all those kinds of areas. And then I came here.
So pretty much everything before the market was prepping for it.
That is the story of my life.
Oh yeah, but including IVM.
Including IVM.
Yeah, because when I discovered you guys, I was so thrilled to know somebody had the courage to actually build a business around podcast when people are like, what is podcast?
Well, we're trying. We are trying. It's definitely, we're starting to get to the kind of traction we want to see, but it's still early days.
Amit, I have to tell you this. We wanted to create some pilots in Hyderabad when the whole idea of podcast came to our minds. So we were talking to people and we said, okay, we just want to hire a studio so that the recording is good and, all of that. We must have called at least 18 studios.
Okay.
And they're like, madam, what do you want to do? We are like, podcast. No, what do you want to do? Dubbing. So we struggled, and these are the people like the best recording studios in Hyderabad. I was situated in Hyderabad then. So they just didn't know.
It's a challenge. We work with recording studios over here, and we have to kind of spend some time with them. Not just in Bombay, right? Even outside of Bombay, in Bangalore, Delhi, Pune, Chennai.
So what do you tell them as the quickest thing if I have to use it?
If you want to use a podcast, if you want to record a podcast, multiple mic setup you need.
Multiple mic setup.
That I think is the most important thing, because most of them are used to single mic setups.
Right.
Whether it is dubbing or whether it is playback singing or what have you.
Yeah.
They're used to single mics. They're not used to multiple mics. Multiple mics, multiple tracks. Right? And then you need to give them the output formats and all that kind of stuff, which is fairly straightforward. You need to know what they're recording on, which again, not that big a deal, but you do need to know that kind of thing.
I will keep that in mind. So what would you like me to talk about?
I don't know. This is your show. You tell me.
So what we're going to do on the show is I'm going to look at your handwriting.
Okay.
And use that as a facilitating medium to talk and hear about your stories.
Okay.
Things where you felt you were struggling and you decided to solve the problem.
Sure.
What did you use? Because I think for listeners, that whole idea of different people trying different methods and still not giving up on startups and early being early mover in every possible space. What was that like? So what were the struggles when you decided
they're always there, right? One of the challenges in terms of being early to certain ideas, right? And that comes from a certain ambition in terms of you want to achieve certain things. But now what you wind up doing is you go for that, right? You go into okay, I want to create an e-commerce site. I want to create this massive, or I want to create this mobile gaming studio. I want to do these kinds of things, right? And the market's not quite there yet, right? And what you're doing is that there is a tremendous opportunity cost in all of these things.
Of course.
Right?
And that's why people don't do it.
Exactly, right. And it's somewhat, it's sometimes it is kind of thought-provoking, right? In that sense.
For you.
Yeah, for you. You think about it, right? You have no choice but to kind of think about it.
I have to interrupt you here. So in handwriting, if you have right margins, we make you write on a blank sheet of paper. So if the right margins are something, the right side of the paper, if you go very close to it again and again, that means you're a risk taker.
I think that's clear, isn't it?
Out of 6 lines, almost 4 or 5 are closer to the margin, and that's so cool.
Okay,
I love the fact that when your personality just matches what your handwriting is.
That is interesting. I the only thing I can see there is barely legible.
That I'll come to.
But I think those are some of the challenges you deal with as a startup entrepreneur, and it's a country where the environment's not always friendly towards it. Social issues are there. I am fortunate enough to come from a background where I have good qualifications. If I were to choose to do something more traditional, I would probably make out quite well.
Like a red carpet, like you really go and you solve the...
Yeah, so I mean, like, it is a this, but at the same time, so money's a challenge, but, I don't know that I want to do anything else.
So Amit, but why? Like, why would you pick up challenges every now and then?
Oh, you want to do big things, you have to take big chances. I kind of do believe that. And I mean, like, I really do believe that.
Yeah, that's amazing, because people talk about it, but they do not want to do the heavy lifting.
No, I mean, like, Aditi, it's scary, it's frightening, right? I mean, like, I've had businesses fall apart on me, right? And when you're going through that, I mean, it's incredibly stressful, it's incredibly challenging. So
also, you fall in love with your ideas.
You do, but you have to be careful. So that's a danger, right? I mean, like, and both sides of it, right? So one is, I think that you have to be careful to ensure that your ideas are intellectually consistent. They make sense in some ways. So you need people to push back at you.
Yeah.
But I also am a firm believer of this idea that... So I remember hearing this at a panel somewhere where Anand Mahendra once said this, right? And I'm not big on, like, quotes and stuff like that from other people.
Okay.
But I'm not like the inspiration quote guy,
Yeah, I'm a coach, so I can't say that.
Well, I'm sure you are. Yes. But I really, really did like the statement that he made, right? He said that you should take advice and input from many, many, many people, but don't substitute their judgment for yours. Which I thought was really interesting, right?
Very
I mean, like, I think what does happen, a lot of people have the tendency, especially in a culture like ours, where the person with the most success in the room becomes the dominant person in terms of opinions and the validity of their opinions.
In everything.
In everything, right, exactly. That's part of our culture, right? We're always like, okay, this person knows what he's talking about.
Because he has had success in one area.
One area, because of that he knows what he's talking about. And, and this is not to neglect, or this is not to negate the experience that is generated through this, right? Through success in whatever areas. But I do think that is something that a lot of us do, right? Where it's just like, you meet somebody, they are very successful in one area, they say, but you should do this, this will turn your business around, right? Or you should do this will take you to the next level, or you should do this. And I think that's that's a very dangerous trap to get into.
So, but Amit, many times we really learn from these suggestions and feedback.
You must learn from everything.
So then how do you differentiate?
You have to you have to have your own mind. Right, at the end of it, you have to
in place.
Yeah, and you have to, like, so you cannot be inflexible, right? Because I think that's also problematic.
Exactly. Yeah.
But at the same time, you again, it's a question of you have to use your best judgment on any of these situations that come in front of you. Right? You're like, okay, this person is telling me to do this, but you ask 5 people, and 5 people are going to give you 5 opinions which are different. Yeah. So you have to basically kind of accumulate all of those. You have to kind of synthesize all of those, and then based on what you think is your own best path forward, you got to kind of go through that. At least that's how I approach it.
Okay. So my question is, what was your while experimenting with these businesses and especially closing some of them,
right,
what was the toughest moment?
Oh, it's hard, right? Because I mean, like, you spend so much time working on these things, right?
Yeah.
And it was extraordinarily hard. So when we decided not to do the mobile gaming piece anymore, right? That was something that was mostly driven by market forces at the time. We were focused on doing Symbian mobile gaming.
Okay.
For the Nokia smartphones that used to be there before the iPhone came out, right? And when the iPhone came out and Android came out, they started eating up the market to a degree where that was no longer a viable business.
Yeah.
And so we had to make choices over there, right? And in some cases, we didn't make the best choices. Because in some cases also, I mean, like, honestly, I was a kid, man. I was 26, 27, something like that at this time, 28
And you had
maybe.
like a third business going?
No, that was it was a continuation of the first business.
Okay.
So the e-commerce side, we realized, was way too early, right? And so then that business evolved into multiple things. We did a lot of different things under the umbrella of that business.
Okay.
So one of them was the mobile gaming piece, right? And so, at that time when we had to we didn't make the choices we necessarily should have made at that point, right? Because it was, and again, this is hindsight of 10 years at this point, but at that time, you're looking at it and you're thinking, does it? You're young, you're arrogant. You assume that, hey, this is going to work.
Yeah.
Right, and sometimes it doesn't. So you get into those kinds of situations.
Sure.
It's just hard. People costs are hard, right? I mean, like the way that you're dealing with team members and stuff like that in those kinds of situations is a really, really tough situation.
Especially when you pick up people, learn from them, train them. It's both way relationships.
Exactly. Yeah. No, and I mean, like they're close relationships in all of these cases, right? Because again, most of these companies that I have run, or most of these businesses that I've run, there's relatively small teams, 15, 20, 25 people, right? So you know everybody.
Yeah.
And so that also becomes a little, it's not the impersonal Vijay Mallya style.
Also, I don't think you do anything impersonal looking at your writing.
No,
Every little thing that you do, you have personal connections with people and you know their stories and you keep observing them and you build.
I like to think so. I mean, like probably don't do a great job of it as much as I'd like to, but I like to think that, you try and you want to, the things that you do, even professionally, right? You don't want to do them with people who you can't connect to.
I don't know. I know so many people who do it like that. You cannot do it specifically. For you, it's the human side which is so much more important.
Well, the human side is important. I think that matters, right? But I also think that it is. I think it's to some degree, it's a function of the circumstance, right? I mean, if let's say I started this e-commerce business 5 years later, right? And we became as big as Flipkart did, right? That would be great. It's obviously not the case, right? But let's say something like that was the situation, right? Sure. At that point in time, you no longer have the ability to have that deeper personal connection with everybody who you work with. So I think some of that matters in that way, right? At IVM here today, right, I feel like I know everybody reasonably well, but I don't know the people who we have today as well as I knew the people we had 3 years ago.
Because the team has grown.
The team has grown and my responsibilities have evolved. And the things that I'm doing on a day-to-day basis are a little more outward facing than they used to be in the early days, right? Mm-hmm. Early days, everything I was doing was all about what's happening inside here.
Right.
Now it's become more about, let's talk to brands, let's talk to advertisers, let's talk to VCs, let's talk to, it's more external facing now to a great degree than it ever was before.
And so just looking at your writing, I would definitely say that the very moment you start feeling stressed out, just know for sure that you don't have your interactions in place.
I don't understand what you mean by that.
Like, the connections with people. If you don't have them,
right?
Like if your core group of people, if you don't connect with them, you don't meet them,
right?
If you don't hang with them, you do not necessarily come across as a talkative person,
right?
But you have deep conversations.
That's probably
and
true.
And you have real conversations.
That's true.
If people keep talking rubbish, you would hear, you would just not participate.
That's probably true.
So all the probablys, let me say absolutely, because the show is called Absolutely Right. So when you miss those conversations, when you get busy, you do not recharge yourself.
That's interesting. I think that's true, right? So I have a lot of friends who I meet occasionally, but there are very few who I used to meet regularly, right? And two very close ones who I used to meet very regularly recently moved to Malaysia about 8-9 months ago. And you're right. I mean, like there's definitely
a void.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this is an interesting part. I always feel all of us have different recharge mechanisms.
Right.
And we have different expressions. So if we don't do justice to this flow,
right,
where we recharge enough and we use our energy in that area of expression enough with work, professionally or otherwise, then we start feeling frustrated. So your recharge mechanism is that close connection bond.
I think that, I agree with that. Absolutely true.
Now you're learning. So probably keeping in touch with these people and making extra efforts to do that might come handy to deal with the stress.
Good point. Good point, and something I should definitely work more on.
The other part of the story is the lingering thoughts.
Okay.
When you experience something, you are in that moment completely absorbed. But the experience, the memories do not leave you easily.
Okay.
In your mind, they keep replaying, or you keep correcting the replay. You say, I could have done this, I could have done this, I could have done this. Or they replay as a replay mechanism.
Okay. I don't know. I feel like I'm actually more about anticipation than I am about replaying.
Okay.
In some ways, when the thing you're describing, right? It feels to me as something that comes to me more when I'm looking to get something done, or that, rather than it being that, oh, I wish this interaction went like that.
No, not like retrospecting constantly.
Okay.
But imagine something happens where you feel emotionally connected.
Right.
You dive into that experience to experience it again and again. So the moments which you lived and they were like really moments that moved you.
Okay.
They stay with you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I guess so.
Why am I talking about it? Because I want to really speak about using emotions as the recharge mechanism, as a way of doing everything.
Am I really? Do I really come off like that? Because I get what you're saying, right? But I wonder about that, right? Because I don't mean to make these two friends an excuse, right? But even when they were here, I'm still very much like, a loner type.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
So introversion, loner. And that's why, because when you interact, you give your 100% in that conversation. You're not a social butterfly.
Right.
You would not go and have 50 conversations. You would have 2, but they're meaningful.
Correct.
And intense. Many a times I meet people, even on the show we have had some people who are so busy being extroverts that they truly give away their loner side, their introversion, their genuine need to be by themselves.
Right.
And this is where they get frustrated.
Okay.
In your case, you haven't done that. You say, okay, I am quiet, I like 2 conversations, and all of you accept that about me.
Right.
And people have.
Yeah, I think that's true.
But in your case, what I'm trying to say is, if you do not understand, or if you don't give enough time for those deep conversations, then it is not fun for you.
That I can... Okay, all right. Yeah,
then it is not worth it.
I agree with that.
So the businesses are not worth it. The relationships are not worth it if the connection is missing.
Right, okay.
So it is not only the market forces that drive this, but imagine, I can't say it for sure, but I'm just saying it, that the people you're working with were on the same page.
Right.
Well, as the market forces started showing up and all of that external thing happened, they also moved. And you could feel the connection moving.
Right.
So knowing that for you connections matter so much and you can really play with them would be a good idea to make new decisions.
Interesting. How would I go about actioning something like that, right?
Like genuinely so you have high EQ.
Okay.
You do not say things which would hurt people necessarily. You think about what you're going to say.
Right.
If somebody asks you for an advice, you are there. You would not discuss it a lot, but you would think about it. And then you'll give a solid advice, whatever is solid according to you.
Right.
But you would not say something in passing.
Right.
Right. So all of these qualities are good high EQ, emotional quotient. By that, by EQ I mean emotional quotient. So that is very, very interesting. That's something I don't see men working a lot on.
Okay.
So
all right.
Yeah. So definitely something that you would realize you can connect. You can build. You can keep a team well.
Okay.
If you exercise that.
Right.
Because you're in between, you do not use that side of you. You're like, yeah, whatever. Probably one day I'll use it.
Okay, all right. Yeah, no, I'll take that to heart. Yeah, I'll take that to...
Yeah, you're good with that. Like, whatever you take to your heart, you genuinely give your 100%.
Yeah, I'll see how I can improve on that space.
There's one letter.
Okay.
Alphabet D.
Okay.
Can you see how it turns to the left and never comes back?
Yeah.
I know another person who had this.
Okay.
And let me tell you what it means before I go and discuss that. So this means...
I never realized that. You're right.
Look at everywhere.
Everywhere, yeah. It's just like I just leave it hanging.
Hanging. So it starts at the bottom.
It doesn't come back.
And it goes to the left and it never comes back.
Right.
It means you had your education in a field that does not match your existing career.
I don't think that's true.
So did you have like passion as a child? You wanted to do some different career which doesn't match today, or didn't match your career, with your studies?
Well, I mean, no. So the thing is, it's been a sort of meandering kind of this, right? I mean, like it's not straightforward in that sense.
Right.
So at the time when I went to school and college, we had no BMM degrees or anything like that, right?
Right.
So I was in BCom for the first 2 years, HR, FIJC, SYJC. And then after that, I went to the US. And when I was in the US, I had a degree in mass communication, which I think is very close to what we're doing.
Right. But did you want to do that while growing up? See, for example, the career wasn't there.
Right.
But did you desire this as a career?
So I had a couple of different thoughts of what I wanted to do. One of which was very much in the media space.
Okay.
That was always something.
Even as a child?
Even as a child. I always was kind of very interested in the media space. But I think, you know what? So this is where I would say the difference is, right? That I've never had like I must do this in life.
Really?
That's never been this, right? My thing is I want to do something important in life. It's never been about a specific kind of thing.
Okay.
It's never been that, like I love podcasts, but I mean like I love audio content. I love the importance. I love how it sounds, all of that.
Yeah.
But it's not been like I wanted to make audio content all my life.
Right.
It was more a confluence of time, opportunity, where I was in my life at that point in time, and where I saw like the ability to make some impact.
Okay.
Right. And so that's how I came there. That's what I thought about when I was looking at e-commerce, right, back then. Same when I was looking at mobile gaming. Same when I was looking at ad tech. All of that's always been, and all of them are somewhat technology and media and like,
Sure, yeah.
in those areas.
And if you had desired that, then I'm going to explore what this stroke means in your life. Because Mahatma Gandhi had this stroke.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. I am not sure what to make of that.
Yeah. No, like, for example, he used legality as in his career everywhere.
Right.
But not practicing law as such.
Okay.
So what he studied or what he thought he wanted to study was very, very different from what he chose.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I've always been fairly
media related.
So media has always been like the number one kind of area that I wanted to be in. I probably would say that I probably was thinking at a younger age more of being like a maker, whether it's a filmmaker, whether it's a podcast maker, but a maker, right? A creator.
But which I still feel very close to what you're doing right now.
It is close to, but I am now more on the business side of things.
Okay.
Right? So, but I mean, like, I guess that's somewhat different, but at the same time.
I don't think so.
I don't think it's that.
I don't think so. So probably that stroke we can relate, or we can probably have to dig deeper to see where it relates. Here it does not relate for sure. So what question can I answer?
I don't know. How ugly is my handwriting compared to most other people?
Let me tell you, it's very ugly. Oh my God, I can't stand
it. Can you even read it?
Of course I can. So I always tell people it's not like ugly person, ugly spouse concept.
Okay.
Not that good looking person can turn out to be a great spouse or a companion.
Right.
Same with handwriting.
Okay.
It may look ugly or illegible to you, but for me it's a graph.
Okay.
So I'm going to just look at it as like the strokes that they are.
Okay.
So,
do you think, does it say anything? I feel like there's a lack of consistency in my handwriting, right? I mean, like, words are often, I can't find them now, so I guess maybe it is more consistent. But I mean, like, something like the P, right? Depending on where, like, this P and this P are fairly different, right? In that sense, there's a lot more rounder than this is. Look at an F, like this and this are similar, but this one's quite different.
Right.
This one's quite different.
So most people have one or two ways of writing. Few alphabets.
Okay.
Like T, F, A, Y.
Okay.
Most people write it in 2-3 ways. So at the beginning of the letter, sentence it is different, middle of it, all of that, connection, disconnection. But inconsistent, I'm glad you can see it.
Okay.
Because that is what you have experienced as your life anyways.
I feel that, right? I feel like whenever I write something, and again, I don't write that much at all anymore. Right now, everything is typed. I mean, like, writing this paragraph feels like the most writing I've done through handwriting in like a while. And it's a very short paragraph.
Yes, still, I'm happy because my secret mission is to get people to write more.
Oh, really?
So I'm happy. At least.
What's the reason for that?
Because when you write, you cannot multitask.
But you can multitask when you're typing either.
Yes, but no, you can still, because you have autocorrect, you have few windows open.
Okay.
Whereas when you're writing, I feel you have to pay attention, otherwise you cannot finish the task.
Okay. Interesting.
Secondly, I also feel we require that connection and, taking a moment off from our busy lives.
Okay.
So writing is the easiest way to do that. So when I ask people to write a paragraph or, do pondering, thinking as an assignment, people feel I have not done it. And there is a fundamental mechanism when you decide to write, your emotions and your body and your hand actually moves in a certain way.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's why handwritten notes are so precious.
Okay, all right, fair enough, I guess.
So it's not about whether you write or not, but inconsistency in writing, what you can see by yourself, is also inconsistency as a pattern for you.
Okay.
So you have observed it, and in writing, it is just being captured.
Okay.
So
what do you mean? Like how inconsistency? How?
Inconsistency in, for example, you get very excited about a plan and you strategize it very, very well. When it comes to execution, you delegate it to other people. And that is, when by the time it is executed, is not what you had in mind.
Correct.
In most cases.
Right.
That's what I mean by inconsistency.
Okay.
So, like if you would have been a different kind of more consistent person, you would have seen through the execution happens how you want it.
Okay.
In your case, you love strategizing. Also, you love falling in love with ideas and people. So you literally like to use that as your motivating factor.
No, that's true. Actually, I think that's very true. I get very enamored by the new shiny thing.
Yeah. That's so true, yeah. And then you want to capture it, you want to experience it, and you want people to experience what you have experienced. Yeah. And that's why you are going all this length, because you're like, oh my God, this was so good. You have to experience it. And let me become the person who can present it to you.
Okay.
That's so nice.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I can definitely see that.
Yeah, so if we know, so for example, if you know your inconsistency, I feel instead of trying to change it, not everything that should be changed must be changed.
Right.
Right. So I feel if you do not do that, and if you understand it, you might have a better executor around you. You would delegate with one more pointer in your mind that I just want to instruct a little bit more so that the delegation happens the way I had it in mind.
Right.
Also, you might become a little more tolerant about it. That it's going to be a little inconsistent than what I thought. And that is okay too. In all these cases, you're more accepting your inconsistency than trying to change it.
Yeah, but isn't that something so isn't consistency a good thing, generally speaking? So how do you...
Good thing depending on where do you want to use it and why you want to use it.
Sure.
For example, if your job is to look at the new shiny things and create a platform for them,
then
conceptualizing, why would you really make yourself consistent? You can't do that every day.
Sure.
You can't find a shiny object every day.
Right.
For that, you have to explore. You have to go out of your comfort zone.
Right.
You have to take risk, which I spoke about, your right side of the margin. And you do a good job of that.
Okay.
Like imagine an adventurous person sitting and every day cutting the boards in an exact size. It'll kill him.
Right.
Same thing. So, that I really love those monster.com ads where they say, oh, stuck in a wrong job.
Yes.
Yeah, so literally that would have happened if you would have tried more consistency.
Okay.
However, as you know this about yourself, where the job or the situation demands you to be more regular, orderly, you just have to put that extra effort.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I feel like the whole idea is to accept yourself so much that you either change those parts that are truly not working for you, or you get other people to be around so that they do their job.
Yeah, okay, all right, I get that. That makes sense.
What else?
I don't know. What kind of questions do people ask you?
So,
I'm really
anything
unprepared.
that you are kind of exploring, I can't say struggling, but something that I'm like this, but I receive feedback from people which is really contrary to who I am.
Sure, yeah. I mean, so that happens all the time, right? I always think of myself as like one of the more reasonable people in terms of just like, I try and look at all points to a discussion.
Okay.
And I feel like I'm reasonable about things, but I do often get a feeling from people that I'm being unreasonable and dictatorial.
That one.
That one.
So, are you being unreasonable? When you fall in love with an idea, you are. Many a times. So, what you think is logical, rational, is colored by your love.
Okay.
So, please give it to people when they say that you're doing that.
Okay.
Because then, you know how we build our confirmation biases? You're like, oh, it is good because in your heart, you've already decided it is good and it will work for that matter. The second part of it, you are impatient.
Very.
So thereby you cannot put up with repetitive discussion.
Very true.
Cannot put up with people saying things which do not have stronger grounds.
Very true.
So you'll be like, oh my
God.
God.
Have a reason. No, I want reasons.
Yeah.
I don't want people to just talk. I want reasons.
Right. But that reasoning has to be reasoning that you agree with.
I'm open, I think, to listen to...
You are open. It's just that because let's go back to the previous part.
Right.
Where you have fallen in love, you have decided in your heart. And then the reasoning, if it is repetitive or if it is not done in a smarter way, then you dismiss it. What people think is aggressive, authoritative.
Okay. All right, I can see that. I'm thinking like, in some cases there have been shows which I was not particularly keen to put out. Right. I was convinced. Right. And while I'm convinced and I'm saying, okay, let's do it, my involvement with some of those shows has been less than what I would do on another show.
Exactly. That's the point. So you're like, okay, fine, you're forcing me to be convinced I am. But then you don't have your heart there.
Yeah.
And then it is not with that, there's a flirtatious part of this creative process.
Right.
Where you try things and you're like, oh no, but let me try that. And
right.
That all you didn't do. You became like more fatherly. Okay, you need platform, I'll give you one.
I think that is it's something that, again, I'm trying to change that with stuff that's rolling out recently, but there was a period for a few months in the middle where I think that had happened.
So if I have to really talk about one factor about your myth, you have to keep in mind that you operate from your gut. Okay, logic is required to confirm, but you see people, you see situations, you see life, and you have this constant gut feel which is active. And I'm very happy that you're one of the few people who are in touch with it.
Okay.
What I was talking in a logical way by calling it emotional quotient and, like loving your ideas.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's your gut feel which is very strongly developed.
Okay.
You just have to work on how to use that gut feel in your business more. And that is something that you have to be aware of and you will learn that.
Makes sense.
But you just have to be accepting of the fact that this is how you think.
Right.
So it is not the rational that would convince you.
Right.
You may ask people questions, but you know it.
You know what's,
Yeah. And when you know it, you actually give yourself to it.
Okay.
And if you are like forced into it, if you are like rationalizing it, then you are on the periphery.
Yeah, okay. All right, fair enough. I guess that's true. Also, somewhat deflating for an adjective that I often apply to myself. I always think of myself as a very rational being. But
you're mesmerized by the shiny logic.
Yes, I am. There you go. That's a good way to look at it. I like shiny logic.
Yeah. So when somebody comes up with a logical point which sounds very good, you're like, wow.
I like very elegant logic. Like if there is something that I'm like, okay, you can do this and this and this and this will lead to this and this will lead to this. I do love that kind of stuff.
So because that process is intelligent and the way it is presented is elegant, you fall in love with it. And that creates the confirmation bias.
Interesting. Very interesting. And I can see it.
Yeah. And it's so beautiful. The very moment we know these things about ourselves, next time we do it,
we'll be a little
careful. We will just be a little more aware not even careful.
Yeah, just
aware.
Know that this is happening.
And there would be this Amit sitting outside of your mind and would look at you for doing it. Next time it may improve a little bit more.
Awesome.
Yeah. So before we close the show, I want to say one thing. You have very strong willpower.
Okay.
I don't know whether you exercise it or not, because willpower is one thing.
Right.
Only a person can exercise it. And, so, but if you really decide to do something and for a change, really take that to your heart, you create it out of thin air from somewhere. And people wonder how you manage to do it. This is one area you must exercise more.
Okay.
These are little intangible areas like your gut feel or willpower. It may work, it may not work in times. So you really have to look at it for what it is. And every time you see, I thought about it and it worked, keep using that. Check yourself, like, what did you do which was correct? What did you do that made it happen?
Right.
But people with, just for listeners to stay on this conversation and understand what I'm referring to, there's a horizontal line in your letter T.
Okay.
And if it is long, which you have at multiple places, that shows stronger willpower.
Okay.
Okay. And which you also have in your signature. So which is very interesting that if you believe in something, people get convinced.
Okay.
Okay. But if you don't believe in something, people see through.
Interesting. Yeah, I see that. I know that for sure. Yeah.
So that. So
I know that for sure.
So the only way you can really build this is by honest conviction.
Yep.
And if you are not convinced about it, probably you have to give yourself some more time or
that makes
drop
sense.
the idea.
That makes sense.
Get to that point.
That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I buy it 100%. Hey, this was really interesting, right? I had no idea that this was the kind of thing.
I thought of calling you in the morning just to prepare you for what kind of conversation we're going to have. And then I thought, let me not do it. Let me not have any, let you not have any idea of what we're going to get into, and let's this be an experiment. And
so why the three things, right? You made me do three things. You made me write the paragraph, you made me do the name in block letters, and you made me do the signature 3 times.
Okay. Handwriting in a paragraph on a blank sheet.
Right.
Because when you have lines or ruled paper, then that guides you.
Right.
Okay. Also for your handwriting, which is larger.
Right.
It would be restricting for you to write on
and
that
small
ruled
right,
space. Right. So we don't want that. We want you to have complete space to figure out. Okay. And then only you will go and, crush the margins.
Correct.
Go up and down, make the mistakes that I want to see through.
Right.
So that's the whole idea. That's like a little blood sample there.
Okay.
Signatures 3 times because some people have inconsistent signatures.
Okay.
So when we ask them to repeat it, they'll end up writing something else.
Okay.
So that again reveals some other parts.
Right.
And your name in block, because sometimes I can't read what the signature says. So I'm like, authoritatively sitting there looking at the handwriting, trying to sound all cool, and I can't read what is written. So I'm like, oh my God, that's embarrassing. So I'm like, this is A or S? No, not in your case.
In my case, I don't think that any letter except for the M looks like the letter it's supposed to be.
That's okay. I'm trained professionally to see through that. Okay, that's okay. But when you can't read at all, that becomes a problem. So the capital block letter writing
right.
got involved.
All right, no, that makes sense.
Yeah,
makes sense. Cool.
Thank you so much.
Nothing, not at all. This was awesome. I was so happy to do this.
Oh, yeah. I'm so happy that, mostly talking to introvert people, and I'm just calling you introvert right there. But it's kind of a challenge because, they are so not used to talking to people out loud about their emotions. So, and of course, with my observations, I knew you're an introvert by now after seeing you in the office 3-4 times. So I was wondering whether will it open up a real conversation or not.
Right.
But that's why I didn't call you. I'm like, let me also jump in and figure out whatever happens. And I'm so glad we did that.
This is always, I always find that I have the best conversations just like straight off, right? But rather than preparing for them or anything like that. I like to prep for stuff, but
he's just making a note that you know. No, but I'm so glad. When people open up and when you are willing to go in any direction that the conversation goes, and I feel session or an analysis has its own energy.
Right.
So we can't drive it. It goes wherever it has to. And when that real conversation happens, everybody, like people in the room, people who are listening, you and I, everybody gets some form of resolve.
Right.
We truly understand what is happening within us with or without our knowledge. Passively, we resolve the issues that we are dealing with.
Yeah, I think that's true.
That's fascinating.
100% true. Yeah.
And that's why we love podcasts, right? Somebody's talking about something and you start thinking about your own life.
Yeah.
And you have complete freedom to imagine what you would like to think about it. So, yeah.
Yep. Cool.
Thank you so much, Amit.
Not at all. Thank you. I'm so glad to do this.
Me too.
Yeah.